Hey everybody, this is Tracy here with another edition of A View from Tracy's Point, and we are here to talk about being Mary Jane. As you guys know, tonight is the series finale, the 2 hour movie that we have been waiting on since January of 2018. So it's taken them over a year. They actually filmed the movie in February of last year, even though the season finale for the final season actually took place. I think it was like in October of 2017, and then they promised us that there was going to be a movie finale that was going to take place in January of 2018, but they didn't actually film it until February of 2018. And I believe there may have been some conflicts of interest. There may have been some people that didn't want to come back and be a part of the series finale, so they had to like bring in, because one of the people that's going to be on the show is I think it's Morris Chestnut, who wasn't a part of the original. Is it Morris Chestnut? Yeah, Morris Chestnut, who wasn't a part of the Being Mary Jane show. And so I think they had to move some things around. And then, like, when people were asking Gabrielle Union, what's going on with the movie? Y'all said it was going to be a movie. And so she was like, you'll get the movie when you get the movie. We filmed the movie and whatever BET decides to do. So we know she was a little bit salty, and her saltiness probably comes from the fact that, Mara and Mara Brock Akil and her husband Salim Akil, they were like the executive producers and writers for the show, and they were ousted. And they brought in, I believe it was Will Piker that they brought in to give the show a new direction. And so they were forced off of their own show. They moved the show from Atlanta with this crazy writing in New York. And so Gabrielle Union, had a contract where she only had to do so many episodes, and they had to work around, like when she had movies and stuff that she needed to film for. So they were supposed to work around those. But then after they forced the Achilles out of the picture, they told that they were going. They told the staff that they were going to do, or the cast, that they were going to do 20 episodes instead of the 10 episodes. And so Gabrielle Union ended up taking them to court because she was saying that she thought that the show was going to end, and they were basically trying to get 2 seasons for the price of one that she was being paid, and she wasn't having it. And I don't know what the resolution ever was to that lawsuit, but they did the 20 episodes. They broke it up. You know how they do like the mid-season finale. So they broke it up that way, and then they came back and announced that they were not going to renew the show, that they were ending the show. So last week, was it last week? So about a week ago, they did a marathon, Being Mary Jane marathon, and I wish they had did it. I think it was the week before, because it ran from Tuesday to Saturday. And I thought, okay, well, they did it like that, and then they're going to do it again next week, and then lead up to, so maybe run it from Thursday to Tuesday, because the movie is tonight. But no, they did not do that. And if you want to catch the last 2 episodes of the final season, they are actually showing that on the they're showing it on that channel that used to be Centric, and now it's called something else. But it's going to start at like 6 or 7 o'clock, and they're going to show like the last 2 episodes. And then you go over to BET, and then they're going to air the movie from 8 to 10. And then following that, we don't get a rerun of the movie. They're going to premiere this new show with Lauren London that's supposed to be coming out, that I'm looking forward to looking at. So anyway, so for 4 or 5 days straight, from like 9 o'clock in the morning to about 3 o'clock in the morning, I was glued to the TV watching every single episode of Being Mary Jane from the first to the last. And so Gabrielle Union gets on my last nerve sometimes, that I follow her on Instagram and then she just starts to overwhelm me with all her cuteness and all these pictures and videos and stuff. She just posts, she gets into these moods where she posts every aspect of her life. And so I'll unfollow her and then I'll, start following her again. But then after watching the series, the marathon of the series, I kind of like got in my feelings and fell in love with her again. It was like, this is why I like Gabrielle Union so much. And so I just really hated that they ended the show because I felt like there was so many different directions that they could have taken this show. They could have, Mary Jane could have gotten on her own talk show, like an Oprah Winfrey type talk show. She could have left the news business altogether. I was really hoping that her and David had gotten back together. I know a lot of people didn't like David. They thought he was arrogant and everything, which he was, but so was Mary Jane. And so I thought that of all the men that Mary Jane was involved with on this show, that her and David had the most chemistry, and I thought that they kind of balanced each other out. I don't know. I don't know. I think one of them would have had to like kind of stand down a little bit, but David was the one that I liked the most of all the guys that she dated. And so we could have like that could have been 2 seasons within itself with her and David and their tug of war and then finally figuring it out and working things out. And so but they took the show in a dangerous left turn and just was all over the place when they took her to New York and just the different men that she was involved with, the whole new group of friends. I mean, by the time they got to the end of the end of the end, where they had her, she had that ghetto publicist, and then she had the gay stylist on the show, and she like inviting these people into her home, and she was just doing too much with these people, telling them all her business. And I was like, okay, does that happen in real life? Because I do know that Gabrielle Union's stylist in real life, he actually had a show on Bravo called Invite to Cabo, and I actually used to recap that show. It was hilarious. But at the end of the 8 episodes that they did, I was like, okay, this show was really stupid, but I liked it while it was going on. So maybe she was trying to put some of that into the show. I don't know, but they was all out in left field. And then I was really surprised. I thought that Niecy would have been a good spinoff. Like Niecy could have gotten her own show, and I think she would have really related to a younger audience, which BET seems to be trying to go after. And all her drama with the 2 baby daddies, and a single female trying to make it on her own, not wanting to become a victim of her circumstances. I thought that would have been an amazing show. And the actress Raven Godwin or Goodwin, I thought that she's a phenomenal actress, and I think she could have held her own on her own show, like if they had given her a chance. So the purpose of this video is that I wanted to do my favorite memorable moments from the Being Mary Jane series, and I have about 14 of them, so let's go ahead and count them down. So, number 1, learning that Mary Jane's parents were Suge Avery from The Color Purple and John Shaft from the movies Shaft. And then to learn that Mama Patterson's secret lover was Fred Williamson. I was like, y'all know Fred Williamson and Richard Roundtree used to be the shiznit back in the day. And I mean, like when they were popular in the 70s, doing that whole blaxploitation movement. I was only, oh my God, I don't think I was 10 years old, but I thought they was sexy way when I was like 8 or 9 years old. Okay, and so, and they're still good looking men. Now that scene where Mom Patterson and Fred Williamson was at that hotel in that bed together, I wasn't feeling that right there. But I don't know, John Shaft could get it, y'all. Richard Roundtree, that is one good looking chocolate brother to me. So even that, I know he got to be about 70 or 80 years old, but I still find him very attractive. So all right, Suge Avery, you still got it, girl. I mean, I was like, this got to be the luckiest woman in the world. So number two, being Mary Jane set the bar for soundtracks. Like the music and the backdrop of that show, I think set the bar for shows like Insecure, Queen Sugar, Greenleaf, like all these shows that came after being Mary Jane now have these amazing soundtracks. And so I think that Oh and Love Is, before it got canceled because all that foolishness with Salim Akil and the Mistress and whatever, amazing soundtrack. So that was number two that I loved about the show. Number three, how Mama Patterson was miraculously healed from lupus, and they thought that we had to forget that she was supposed to have lupus, because if you remember when the show first started, Mama Patterson was on her deathbed. She was coughing and hiking, and then it kind of turned out that she wasn't as sick as she was saying that she was just using it as sympathy and to get attention. And then PJ turned her on to that marijuana, and then all of a sudden she started feeling better, getting up out that bed, dancing around. But she still had her moments where she needed the oxygen. But child, by the time we got to that final series, Mama Patterson was out here cheating on her husband. She flying all around. She singing at the club. And I was just like, what in the world is going on? But Mama Patterson didn't play the radio, y'all. She was my kind of mama, okay? So then number four, when Mama Patterson told Niecy to tell her troubles to the people living on the other side of her front door, because she didn't give a damn, okay? She wanted Niecy to get a job. She wanted Niecy to stop spreading her legs, having these babies that she couldn't take care of. And more important, she wanted Niecy and her freeloading daddy to get out of her house, because she was tired of taking care of grown people. She wanted to enjoy her house and her husband without all these other people in the house. And I'm thinking, if she had ever got them at that house, John Shaft would have been in for a run for his money, and she never would have hooked up with Fred Williamson. And I just felt when she did that on that episode, when she told Niecy about herself, I felt that in my soul. Because y'all know my baby girl still live at home. I love her to death, but I just really need her to get a little more independence. Then number five, my favorite sex scene was every sex scene with Omari Hardwick. Y'all know Ghost from Power. I don't care what show he be in, he be putting it down. But they say Omari is kind of like losing something going on. I know I used to follow him on Twitter, but he was kind of like spaced out all over the place with his poetry and stuff. But the last time I seen a picture of him, he just didn't look like his fine, sexy self anymore. So hopefully when Power comes back, he gets that zest and that zeal back. But if I had to choose one scene, it was that scene where I can't remember if it was after they broke up the first time or when he moved in. I can't remember when it was, but remember when you first came into Mary Jane's house, it was like a hallway or foyer area, and then there was this long, low bench up against the wall. It was a wooden bench, and child, they got into it, got to carrying on one day, and he picked her up, and then he squatted down and was giving it to her in a squatting position. I was just like, whoa, what's going on there? So that had to be my favorite. Number six, why did Mary Jane have a security gate at the entryway to her driveway, but there was no other fencing anywhere else around her property? And then why did we only see the gate in the one scene where, remember, David had came over and he had spent the night, he had brought the sushi or the Chinese food or something, and he spent the night, and him and Mary Jane was talking or something, and then this car pulled up, and then David was like, well, who is that? Like, and then she said, oh, probably somebody, trying to turn around and got lost. And David walked out to that gate, and Andre was out there trying to enter the security code to open the gate. Like, that was the only time I ever saw that gate, because for the rest of the shows, people just pulled up in front of Mary Jane's house. And they remember the guy that she worked with who lived next door, he used to come down the street, because I guess they had like big properties, and he would walk down and get her garbage cans and take her garbage cans out to the street. He didn't have to go through no gate. And then you would see people driving up and down the street, and there was no fencing. And so I was like, come on, y'all, why y'all treating us like this? Number seven, speaking of that scene, when David went out to confront Andre about the gate, or at the gate, Mary Jane was hiding behind those curtains, and she was like, oh, what's about that? But I love that scene. And that's why I think I liked her and David so much together. And then also he like put up with so much of Mary Jane's crap, and then he was just always like, girl, I realize you're crazy, but I love you're crazy. I love you anyway, and let's make this thing work, but I'm gonna need you to bring it down a little bit. And so then you remember Mary Jane, when the show would open, there would always be this quote. And so I was like, man, there was some really great quotes on that show. And I was thinking about, which one was my favorite. And so I finally came up with one that I thought was my favorite. Well, actually, I came up with two of them. So one of them was by Andre Lloyd. And it says, when I dare to be powerful, to use my strength in the service of my vision, then it becomes less and less important whether I am afraid. So I love that one. And then the other one, I can't remember who this one was by, but it says, attract what you expect, reflect what you desire, become what you respect, mirror what you admire. I thought that was really good. So you guys let me know what you thought was your favorite, or which was your favorite Mary Jane quote. And then number 9, Mary Jane's shadiest moment, when she gave the speech at the mentors luncheon. Remember, she had confronted Andre's wife in the store and told that poor lady that she was that she was having an affair with her husband. And the lady was like, well, what do you want me to do with that information? And then the lady came to her job and wanted to talk to her and find out what she was doing wrong or whatever, and pretty much let Mary Jane know she wasn't leaving her husband for her. And so they were at this mentors luncheon, and it turned out that Andre's wife was this huge donor. And so they were sitting at this table. So I don't know if the wife had set this up or what, because she came late to the luncheon, so Mary Jane was already seated. And so then she started trying to throw jabs at Mary Jane about, people cheating and all this stuff. And so she was like, Mary Jane, what do you think about this? And Mary Jane was like, okay. But then when she got up, she was reading her cards, like, preparing for the speech that she was going to give. And then when she got up there, she basically said that sometimes being number 2 is the position you want to take, because when you're in number 2, you learn what number 1 is doing wrong. So when you get ready to move into the number 1 position, you already know what not to do. Because remember, Andre used to come and tell Mary Jane everything, like the woman couldn't give head good, she wasn't good in bed, she didn't do this, she didn't do that, she was boring. So she was basically letting her know, the reason your husband keep coming over here to me is because I know what you're not doing right, and so I know how to do those things right. So Miss Avery had to slide back in that chair and check herself after that. And then number 10, the saddest moment. So remember, Mary Jane had the best friend, Lisa. Lisa was the gynecologist, and she used to go around, she wouldn't have sex with guys, but she would perform oral sex on them. And then Mary Jane found out that her and David had hooked up at one point, and so she was like really mean to Lisa. But when the series first started, Mary Jane, it was like the first or second episode, Lisa had tried to commit suicide, and Mary Jane went to her house, took care of her, nursed her back to health and everything. And so when she found out, about Lisa doing whatever she did with David, I'm saying to myself, now Mary Jane, the woman got some psychological issues. So she just wrote Lisa off. She just threw her to the wolves. So Lisa ended up committing suicide. And when I tell y'all, now I ain't never seen nobody take no overdose. I don't know if they be foaming at the mouth or how this whole thing work out. They choke on their vomit or whatever. But that was one realistic scene, and it just let me know that I would never take an overdose, because that just seemed like a long, drawn out way to die. And so I thought that was just so sad. And so, I thought Lisa also gets the award for being Mary Jane's shadiest hating friend, because deep down inside, she really wanted to be Mary Jane. She didn't really like Mary Jane, and she would just be throwing shade, and Mary Jane wouldn't be picking up on the shade. And so I thought Mary Jane had a lot of nerve, telling Lisa's mama to choose between her and her husband. Like the woman wasn't grieving over her daughter, and it was like, Mary Jane, come on now, don't be like that. But she told the woman that the daddy was coming to, or the stepdad was coming to the funeral. Then she wasn't coming to the funeral and told the woman, now you need to choose. And I'm like, you know, the woman getting abused, the man beaten up and everything. And then you going to send her out there to tell that man that he can't come to that funeral. I was just like, oh, Lord. Well, lo and behold, the man did show up at the funeral. And then Mary Jane, instead of doing some self-reflection and wondering about the role she played, and Lisa ultimately committing suicide, how she just ignored the woman's phone calls. Like Lisa was texting her and calling her and she wouldn't respond and wouldn't answer. And I'm thinking, you knew that she had psychological problems, and even if you didn't want to go over there and talk to her, you could have called David or somebody or one of the other girlfriends and be like, I'm not talking to Lisa right now, but I think she's in crisis mode, can somebody go help her? So instead of focusing on her role and her, part of Lisa's demise, she gets up there to give her little eulogy and tell everybody that Lisa had been molested by the stepdad since she was 9 years old, and just went in on the man, totally destroyed the memorial service, broke the mother's heart who was already grieving over her child committing suicide. And I was just like, Mary Jane, I just like don't know what to do with you at this point. So then number 11, the dumbest moment was the whole CC fiasco. If you guys remember, Loretta Devine joined the cast in that final season. And we had about 6 episodes where she was playing this manly lesbian, what do they call them? Stud. She was a stud. Okay, so she got into an accident with Mary Jane, and she was extorting money from Mary Jane to open up a bookstore. And like she taught Mary Jane some lessons about herself. So it was some cute moments in there, but for the most part, that was a waste of 6 episodes where we could have went in a whole nother direction. And it was just stupid, and they ended up, entrapping her and getting her arrested for embezzling that money. And I think she was trying to get like $25,000, and she was making Mary Jane pay her $5,000 every pay period. And Mary Jane had actually started liking her, but then she got greedy and wouldn't stop. And so then Mary Jane they had to get her off the show because it was going nowhere. So then number 12, Sister Show was about Black women and relationships. I thought it was a missed opportunity that they did not explore more with Patrick finding love, because we know sisters love to build a man. And so I thought Patrick's character had so much potential. And I thought when Tracy went to jail and he was taking care of the little girl, I thought they were going to explore something with the principal at the elementary school, but then all of a sudden they pulled back. And I think that Richard Brooks is such a handsome man. He reminds me a lot of Idris Elba, just an older version. And I just felt like they wasted his character. Like that character could have been so much more and could have did so much more for the show, but they let that opportunity pass. I had 10 and 11 back and forth. So now we're on to number 12. So despite all her efforts, Niecy turned out to be everything that Mary Jane was, and Mary Jane was her mother's daughter. And talk about generational curses, because we found out that Mary Jane's mom was really in love with Fred Williamson, which I talked about earlier, but she married I keep on calling man John Shaw, but she married Papa Patterson. Paul. She married Paul because she was pregnant, and Paul was in love with her, and Richard Williamson character had then ran off somewhere and left her, and so he married Mama Patterson and raised Patrick as his own son. And so she was living like in search of something all the time. And then so Mary Jane turned out to be looking for this perfect relationship that she saw in her parents that really didn't exist, because they had secrets and they had problems also. And so she went from man to man to man, but then she wanted so much for Niecy, and was getting mad at Niecy because Niecy was having these babies, and that was really the only difference. Whereas Mary Jane was probably having abortions or whatever and not, actually becoming a single mom. Whereas Niecy didn't care. She was having her kids, because they were a form of validation for her. Then number 13, Dante. Dante. So y'all remember Dante was the Filipino boy that Niecy had the little girl Isabel from. So we met Dante and his mom after Dante failed to go to, he was supposed to go to the OB/GYN appointment with Niecy, and he stood her up, and then Niecy went into labor. He was supposed to go to the hospital. Like, she didn't want to go to the hospital till Dante got there, and they kept telling her, Dante's not coming, Dante's not coming. So they eventually took Niecy to the hospital so that she could have the baby. And then after they got her to the hospital, Patrick and PJ, I think it was, they went over to Dante's house. So Dante's mom was there, and she was just so appalled that her son was out here making babies, because he had another baby from another girl, and he was out here making these babies and not taking care of them. And then she was like, you need to be a man, you need to be responsible, you need to go to that hospital, for your child to be born. And so I was like, okay. But then after Niecy and the other girl had the baby, we never saw Dante's mom again. And like, even when they were going through all the issues where Dante was using Niecy after Niecy had got the lawsuit from the Black Lives Matter situation where she was tased by the police, we never, and she was always having trouble with babysitters and stuff, but we never saw his mom spend time with Isabel. Niecy couldn't call her to babysit the grandbaby, so I thought that was another lost opportunity, and how they just threw something out there to see if it would stick. And then number 14, Mary Jane was very self-centered, self-righteous sociopath that self-medicated with sex. She screwed 7 different men in the course of a year and a half. She was almost 39 when the show first started in season 1, and then I think she turned 40 at the end of season 3. And then although they would make mention of like current events happening the year the shows were airing, Kara's kids became teens overnight to make it seem like there was a long stretch of time. But then when you think about it, when the show first started, Niecy was 8 months pregnant. And when the show ended, Niecy, her baby probably wasn't even 2 years old. So even though they had all this other stuff going on to make it seem like it was years passing, it really wasn't. It was about a year and a half that this show spanned. And so that's it. 14 things that stood out to me with being Mary Jane. Looking forward to the movie tonight. Let me know, guys. Did you watch Being Mary Jane? Did you like the show? What did you think about it? What were some of your favorite moments? And like I asked earlier, what was your favorite quote from the show? Did you like the fact that she used to have those stickies with those like like the quotes and different things, and sort of the affirmation sayings and stuff all around her apartment? What did you think about the glass house? I thought that was so symbolic because Mary Jane was so judgmental of everybody, and so it was sort of like people who live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. So anyway, that's it for me. And leave your comments below, rate the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And until the next time, I shall talk to you guys later. Bye bye.